From News 13, the latest breaking news, county by county coverage, plus weather on the ones. This is your midday news weather now.
The surprise announcement from State Attorney Aramis Ayala not to seek the death penalty in the Markeith Lloyd case has set off a firestorm of questions and concerns. In today's In Depth, we're discussing what's next. Orange Osceola State Attorney Aramis Ayala set off a firestorm Thursday when she announced she would not seek the death penalty for accused killer Markeith Lloyd or anyone else. Here to go in depth on this decision is Florida A&M College of Law professor Jeremy Levitt. Thanks so much for joining us. A firestorm is an understatement, and Governor Scott has removed Aramis Ayala from the Markeith Lloyd case. So does he have the authority to do that?
Yes, the governor can reassign any state's attorney under Florida Statute 2714 if the ends of justice are served in his view. And so essentially what he's done is he's just reassigned that specific case. The more difficult question is why that case and not the other death penalty cases under her jurisdiction.
Is there a possibility that she could be fired?
I think that's a more difficult question. She is elected by the people. There's a question of whether the governor could suspend her, but what would be the legal basis for doing that, and or continue to reassign her cases to make it difficult for her to move forward as a prosecutor, or perhaps the Senate could impeach her by a 2/3 vote. It's unclear yet. The law is somewhat unsettled.
Could there have been a different way to do what she did? Could this have been handled differently?
I think it could potentially have been handled differently by all sides.
Okay.
I think that the governor, before reassigning the case, should have met with her.
Okay.
His staff should have met with her, and they should have had a long discussion about whether there's a better way to approach this issue, because she's made an announcement. A decision hadn't been formally made at the time, but each prosecutor has 45 days to determine whether or not they're going to pursue the death penalty, which is why she needed to announce it. I think there was still room for negotiation, possibly, if the governor felt very strongly about that. I would have preferred to see her, if she felt that the administration of justice would not be served by pursuing the death penalty, to then have a moratorium on the death penalty while her office studies a specific study for Orange and Osceola counties to determine whether or not the disparities that she cited are in fact disparities within her jurisdiction and her circuit.
Well, is she right when she points out that it's less expensive to incarcerate a convicted person than it is to execute them?
It is, when you add up the legal costs to the taxpayers with all of the various appeals that go forward. Death penalty cases can stretch out from 12 to 25 years, so it's very costly to the public. But I wouldn't necessarily make that type of equivalency, meaning using the cost to house a prisoner versus the cost of litigation to protect the rights of a prisoner from being put to death.
Well, use of the death penalty is cited as a way to deter crime, but if that was so, wouldn't violent crime already be down? And it's not.
Well,
in a state like Florida.
I think it's a hard thing to measure, because if you're deterring crime, what tool do you have to measure that there's actual deterrence, except the crimes are not being committed? So I think you can make an argument both ways, that the death penalty deter crimes, but at the same time it may not deter crimes because people are still committing murder and being prosecuted and being convicted and being given the death sentence.
So regardless of what happens in this case, you foresee the courts doing away with the death penalty eventually?
I'm not so certain of that. I think Florida law is now settled. What's important, and I think the safeguard that the Florida Supreme Court has put forward, is that there has to be a unanimous jury in order for there to be a death sentence. And that's a safeguard by itself. It used to be 10. The Florida legislature has legislated. The Supreme Court has ruled that unconstitutional. Now I think in the past month it's been settled. I don't think the death penalty is going anywhere in Florida and in the United States. What's interesting, though, and what I think goes to the prosecutor's view of this, is that we are the only Western democracy in the entire world that still has a death penalty.
One last question very quickly. Do you think her career has taken a big hit that she won't be able to recover from?
I think she's made a very serious executive decision, and I think time will only tell how it will affect her political career. But I think you have to judge people based on the decisions they make. She felt convicted that there were too many disparities to go forward, too many mistakes being made, and all of the data seems to support her argument there. At the same time, the voters had a certain expectation. So I think we have to wait and see. She's very talented. She wants to serve the people of the 9th District, and the 9th Circuit, and so we'll see what happens.
All right, right now the sharks are circling, and they smell blood in the water, and we'll see, as you said, we'll see what happens.
Well, let's hope that there's not an impasse here. Let's hope that there's still room for some discussion and perhaps some negotiation. It would be a loss for the state to lose her. She's extremely talented. She's young. She's very smart. Now, my hope is that the governor and her office can get together and try and find a middle ground here.
All right, Professor Levitt, as always, thank you.
Thank you very much.